They thought I was just a useless old man, a piece of furniture collecting dust in the corner of their perfect little lives. 4 years, they ignored my voice, my feelings, even my birthday. But the day they crossed the line, when they tried to take away the one thing I loved more than anything, I decided they'd never see it coming. You want to know what happens when you push an old man too far? Well, sit down, because this isn't just a story. This is my revenge. And trust me, by the end, you'll be cheering. If you told me 20 years ago that my own kids would see me as nothing more than a walking will, I wouldn't have believed you. Back then, I was Dad. The man they came to for advice, for comfort, for help fixing a flat tire or negotiating a car price. But over the years, something shifted. It was subtle at first. Missed phone calls. Fewer invitations to birthdays. Eventually, visits became obligations, not moments of love. And the house? The house was always the unspoken centerpiece of their future plans. Not my future. Theirs. I overheard Amanda once, at a barbecue in my own backyard, telling a friend, "Yeah, when Dad's gone, we'll split the property. Derek wants to tear down the garage, and I'll finally have a big kitchen for catering prep." Like I was just a placeholder, a barrier between them and what they wanted. It wasn't just what they said. It was how they treated the house and me. One summer, Derek asked to use the backyard for a small get-together. I came home from the grocery store to find 40 people stomping through the grass, beer bottles on the porch, someone's kid scribbling on my siding with chalk. When I told him it wasn't okay, he just laughed. "Relax, Dad. It's not like you're using the place for anything exciting." Amanda wasn't any better. She once borrowed my dining room for a catering tasting without asking. I walked in to find strangers using my bathroom, my fridge stuffed with food I didn't recognize, and my good china being washed in the dishwasher, which I never did because Sarah insisted it would damage them. They were treating the house like it was already theirs, and by extension, treating me like I was already gone. That Christmas will be burned in my memory forever. I had been cooking for days. I polished the silver, steamed the tablecloth, even set up the old record player to play Bing Crosby, just like Sarah and I used to. They arrived nearly an hour late, carrying half-wrapped gifts and bickering about parking. The grandkids barely looked up from their tablets. Derek and Amanda spent more time on their phones than talking to me. Halfway through dinner, Derek glanced around and smirked. "Man, I can't wait to redo this place. Those floors have got to go." Amanda laughed. "First thing I'm doing is ripping down those curtains." "Sorry, Dad, they're tragic." They didn't even notice me put my fork down. I looked at them, really looked, and realized they weren't picturing me here. They were picturing my absence. That night, I sat in the dark with only the Christmas tree lights on, and I made a decision. The diner was nearly empty the morning I saw Tom Henderson. I knew him only in passing, a man with a reputation for holding grudges and not sugarcoating his words. We ended up sharing a booth, and over bacon and eggs, I learned something interesting. Years ago, Derek and Tom had gone into business together. Derek had cut him out of a lucrative contract, leaving Tom nearly bankrupt. Amanda had her own history with him. She'd hired his catering company, refused to pay the final bill, and then got sued. They hated him, and the feeling was mutual. As Tom finished his coffee, a wild idea took root in my mind. I called a real estate agent I trusted, Kelly. She was sharp, efficient, and didn't mince words. When I told her I wanted to sell, she asked the obvious, "Do your kids know?" I told her no, and that's how I wanted it. "Then let's keep it that way until the ink's dry," she said. I mentioned Tom, casually at first, then more seriously. Kelly didn't even blink. "If he's willing to meet the price, I'll make it happen." Tom came over the next week. We walked through the house. He touched the banister, stepped into the kitchen, looked out at the backyard. "You've taken care of it," he said. "It's been my life for 40 years, I replied. We agreed on a price. Fair market value. No tricks. No friendly discount. If anything, I wanted the price to be something my kids would choke on if they ever asked. By the end of the month, we'd signed the agreement. I started packing. I invited them over. Amanda walked in first, looking around at the half-empty living room. What's going on here? Derek followed, frowning. You redecorating? No, I said calmly. I sold the house. Their faces were blank for a moment. Then Amanda laughed, that sharp, dismissive laugh. Yeah, right. I handed them each an envelope. Inside, a copy of the sale agreement. Amanda's eyes widened. Who's Tom Henderson? Derek froze. His jaw clenched. You sold it to him? I did, I said. He moves in next week. Says he likes the curtains. You've ruined everything, Amanda shouted. That was supposed to be ours. Derek snapped. I stayed calm. No, it was mine, and I decided what to do with it. You treated me like I was already gone. Well, I'm not, and I don't owe you anything. They stormed out, slamming the door. I didn't stop them. My apartment is small, but it's mine. I can walk to the grocery store, to the library, to the park. I've made friends. Tom sends me photos sometimes. The porch at sunset, the garden blooming. He hasn't changed much. Says it reminds him of when houses were built to last. Amanda and Derek? They've barely called. The last time Amanda reached out, it was to ask if I'd reconsider transferring the deed before the sale was final. I told her it was too late. A month ago, I found out something delicious. Tom's nephew is starting a small business in catering. Guess who he hired as his business mentor? Me. And the first venue he's booking events for? My old house. Amanda and Derek will eventually hear about it. Maybe they'll even get an invite to an event there someday. And they'll have to walk into the house they thought they'd own and see someone else living their dream. And I'll be there, sipping coffee in the corner, smiling. It started with a phone call from my neighbor, Mrs. Kaplan. She's 82, still sharp as a tack, and knows everything happening on our street. You might want to know, George, she said. Your kids have been hanging around the old place, talking to contractors, whispering in the driveway. I thanked her and didn't let on that my pulse had quickened. I had a pretty good guess what they were up to. I didn't have to wait long to find out. Tom called me a few days later. You'll never believe this, George. I had a roofing crew show up saying they were hired by the owners to start demo work. When I asked for paperwork, they couldn't produce a thing. I laughed. Let me guess, Amanda and Derek? Bingo, he said. They even tried to convince my gardener that I'd sold the house back to them. Nice try. I wasn't surprised. If my kids couldn't get the house through inheritance, they'd try to force Tom into selling. Tom and I decided to play along. He called Amanda and Derek, pretending to be furious about the mix-up and hinting that maybe he'd be willing to cut his losses and sell. They took the bait instantly. Amanda even bragged that they could flip the place for a fortune once they got it back. What they didn't know, Tom had me on speakerphone during every call, and every word was recorded. A week later, Tom invited them over to negotiate. I was there too, sitting in the living room like I'd never left. Amanda walked in, glaring. Derek didn't even say hello. Tom started, "Before we talk numbers, I just want to be clear. Trying to trick contractors into doing unauthorized work? That's not legal." Derek's face flushed. "We were just checking things out." Tom smiled and pulled out a small recorder. "Funny, because this says otherwise." He played back their voices, crystal clear, talking about forcing him to sell and taking the place back before the old man dies. Amanda went pale. Derek tried to bluster. "You can't use that." "Sure I can," Tom cut him off. "And if you set foot on my property again without permission, I'll use it in court." I stood then, slow and deliberate. You too might want to remember something, I said. This house was never yours, and now it's more out of reach than ever. They left in silence, no parting shots this time. A month later, Tom held a neighborhood barbecue at the house. He invited me, Mrs. Kaplan, and even some of Amanda's old catering clients. Amanda and Derek drove by twice that day. I saw them slow down, looking at the happy crowd in the yard they once claimed as theirs. I raised my glass toward them. They didn't wave back. Do I miss my kids? Sometimes. But I don't miss being treated like I was already gone. I didn't sell the house to hurt them. I sold it to remind myself that I'm still in control of my life, and to make sure the people who took me for granted learned that lesson too. And now, every time I visit Tom and walk through that front door, I don't feel like the man who lost his family's respect. I feel like the man who made sure they could never take it for granted again. Because they laughed when I sold the house. They're not laughing now.